Hello and welcome to today's event, Scaling Your Business. We have a ton of information to provide today, and we're happy to kick off our 2022 webinar series with a great panel today. Today, you'll be hearing from different organizations, from businesses themselves, large business such as HEB and programs that they have to support small businesses, as well as consultative services from SBDCs, as well as Texas State SCALEUP. So without further ado, we're going to get right on into this event. We have roughly 57 minutes to get as much information as we can. So let's go. To kick off the event, we're going to post a couple of interactive questions into the featured feed. These questions are really to help identify our audience. So these two statements, I am thinking about starting a business, or have recently, within 2 years, started a business, or I started a business more than 2 years. We would like for you to like which one of these statements best reflects you in your entrepreneurship cycle. So if you have or haven't started a business, or you're less than 2 years in starting your business, like that first statement. Or if you've been in business for longer than 2 years, like that second one. All right, to be respectful of everyone's time, we're going to go ahead with the event. Our executive director, Adriana Cruz, is here to provide welcoming remarks. Adriana is our executive director of the Economic Development and Tourism Division within the Office of the Governor. So without further ado, Miss Adriana Cruz.
Hi, thank you so much, Jarvis, and thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. I want to thank you for joining us today. I'm Adriana Cruz. I'm the Executive Director of the Economic Development and Tourism Office here in the Office of Governor Greg Abbott. And on behalf of Governor Abbott and the entire team at the Economic Development and Tourism Office, I want to thank you for joining us today for our Governor's Small Business webinar. Our goal is to provide you with information and connect you with local resources in your area that can help you to find success. Under Governor Abbott's leadership, our office is committed to work with Texas business owners like yourself to make sure that Texas continues to be ranked as the top state in the country to start a business and to be an entrepreneur. In fact, Texas is ranked as the best state in the country to start a business and the top state for jobs created by Black business owners and Black, Hispanic, and veteran women-owned business owners. During Women's History Month, I'm proud to say we're also a top state for women entrepreneurs with more than 1.2 million women business owners. Texas's small business owners and entrepreneurs are the backbone of our state's economy, representing 99% of our businesses and employing nearly half of all working Texans. And we appreciate everything that you do to keep our economy going. Working together, we're going to continue the strong trajectory of economic growth in Texas. We have a great panel for you today to talk to you about how to scale up your business. The panel of experts you'll be hearing from, they'll introduce themselves in a moment, will include the Small Business Development Center, the Texas State University SCALEUP program, and HEB's Quest for Texas Best, and lessons learned from a successful small business owner like yourselves. Please don't hesitate to reach out to our small business team, our small business advocate, Jarvis Brewer, and the members of our small business team, Jared Cruz, Eric Schneider, and Brian Roller. Their contact information will be provided at the end of the webinar. Please let us know if we can do anything to assist you as you continue to do business in the Lone Star State. Jarvis, back over to you.
Thank you, Adriana, and you're absolutely right. A ton of great things are happening in the state of Texas for business in general, small, medium, large, or just in the mindset of entrepreneurship. So thank you so much for your time today. And let's get into the content of the event, why everyone is here today. We do want to identify even more about our audience today. So again, we're going to post another couple of interactive questions. Again, like the statement that best reflects you. My business provides a tangible product, or my business provides a service or intangible product. So we're really trying to see if you have a physical product or if you have a service, because we want to address both. Scaling up and growing your business, no matter what your product or service is, it's an item that's on the minds of entrepreneurs and business owners. All right, so now I'd like to introduce who we have today speaking on our panel. These will be members who will provide some FAQs related to their organizations and programs, as well as at the end of the event, the live Q&A. So feel free to ask these questions when we open up the live Q&A, which will happen momentarily, to any of these individuals in their respective programs. Today we have Joe Harper, who is the Executive Director of the Texas State University SBDC, Small Business Development Center. Additionally, within Texas State University, we have Dan Roy, who's a co-director at Texas State University Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And lastly, but definitely not leastly, we have Dr. Josh Daspit, who is an associate professor of management at Texas State University, and also is with the SCALEUP program that Texas State is rolling out. To round out our panel today, we have Jody Hall, who's the Vice President of Global Sourcing with ATB. Some of you may have heard of that organization, as well as George and Rubie Huerta, who are the co-owners and operators of George and Rubie's Favorites, a small business that has participated in the Quest for Texas Best, one of ATB's premier sourcing programs. So let's kick this off with some panel questions, some frequently asked questions for our panelists. We'll start with you, Joe. And Joe, actually introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you do with the SBDC.
Had to remember to unmute myself. That's seems like I'd be more familiar with that by now. Thank you so much, Jarvis. The SBDC is a federal and state funded program that provides small businesses with technical assistance, whether it's to start a company, to grow their business, or to scale their business. And yes, there's a difference between growing and scaling. And we do that through mentoring, education, and collaboration. And so the first question on the list on folks' minds here is it a good strategy to use my relationships with large outlets to introduce and promote my product? And the short answer is, sales is all about relationships. And so when we think about how do we leveraging relationships, so the short answer is yes, but there's a more another component that needs to be thought about when you're talking about that, and that that said, when you're scaling a large part of your business with one buyer, comes with a certain amount of risk, and there's growing pains which would cause you to necessarily overwork your assets and stretch your resources, and this could negatively impact the existing customer relationships. So it's a great idea to leverage and to do this expansion, but to do it in a way that you are always protecting those existing customers and those existing relationships, that they don't negatively impact those relationships, and that you learn to reduce or to mitigate the market risk by always maintaining a balanced customer portfolio. You don't want to have too much of your business with one company. And when we start to scale, there's a tendency for that to happen, but we need to plan how we're going to manage that and how we're going to not just scale in with one company once we start scaling, but learn how to be able to scale with several companies so that you try to maintain that balance. The other thing then was how does outsourcing impact profits? And there's several reasons why you might want to outsource certain functions of the business. And as you do that, realize that particularly as it relates to CPG, and I know this is what they're going to be talking about a bit today, is that there are opportunities for you to produce your product, whether you produce it in your own kitchen, you produce it in a commercial kitchen, or you use a co-packer. And you have to think about what aspects of each one of those things you're going to do, and whether it's for ad hoc or you're tolling or you're completely outsourcing to the co-packer, whatever aspects of your operations you want to outsource, it's all going to have an impact on your bottom line. And the control of pricing in the marketplace, when you start to scale, it's all about volume, but you start to lose control of how you set the prices. Then now it's more the big buyers begin to set your pricing. So you're getting a little bit of a squeeze. So you always need to be aware of your cost as associated with expanding a business and growing your markets. And the great thing about outsourcing is that you can ramp up capacity. The tough thing about outsourcing is you're adding cost to the operation. And so you need to try to find where's that balance so you maintain your margins while still meeting the needs of the buyer and the marketplace.
Thank you so much for that, Joe. And just so that our audience knows about where we're at as far as those interactive questions, roughly 24 of you out of, I believe, 38 of you have answered that question. So over half have identified as being services in our audience today, which is very interesting. And so we will guide a little bit of our program towards scaling or growing your business with scaling, of course, or with a with a service. But of course, a lot of the programs here that we'll talk about today are for those consumer packaged goods that Joe just mentioned. So thank you so much for that, Joe. That's great information. Let's move along with our next panelists. Good afternoon, Dan and Josh. How are y'all doing this afternoon? Could you tell us a little bit about Texas State University and the SCALEUP program, as well as the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship?
Absolutely, Jarvis. Thank you. And it's great to be with everyone this afternoon. My name is Dan Roy. I am an entrepreneur in residence in the McCoy College of Business at Texas State University. And I'm also the co-director for the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, along with Dr. Shannon Weigum. For those of you that may not be familiar with Texas State University, let me just give a little bit of context. Texas State University is located in San Marcos, Texas, between Austin and San Antonio. It is home to just under 38,000 students, so it is a large university. It is a Hispanic serving institution. It is also a majority minority institution. It is home to a very robust, what we refer to as an entrepreneurial ecosystem. So the purpose of the center that we refer to is really to support and grow that entrepreneurial ecosystem, both at the university as well as outside of the university. We're very focused on the major issues and challenges that are facing entrepreneurs. One of those that we've identified is kind of the premise by which the new program SCALEUP was developed. And that is the fact that minority-owned businesses tend to lag when it comes to growth and scale. And so Texas State University, through the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, has launched a flagship initiative to solve this very significant problem. And I'm thrilled to have Dr. Josh Daspit with us this afternoon, who is the program lead for SCALEUP. And let me, Josh, defer to you and let you share a little bit more about this really exciting program.
Great. Well, thank you, Dan. And thank you to Director Cruz, Jarvis, your team, and to everyone who's joining us today to learn more about how to scale and grow your business. As Dan mentioned, I'm Dr. Josh Daspit. I'm an associate professor at the McCoy College of Business at Texas State. And I teach and research on issues related to small business management and entrepreneurship, and have a specific focus on family businesses and minority-owned businesses. And as Dan mentioned, I'm also leading a new initiative at the university that's called SCALEUP. SCALEUP is an acronym. It stands for the Sustainable Cultivation and advancement of local enterprises for underserved populations. And as Dan mentioned, Texas State is a Hispanic serving institution. We have a majority of minority students, and we are focused on serving not only our students, but also the underserved populations in our community and within the state. So SCALEUP is an exciting initiative. It's recently launched at the university, and it's also unique to Texas State. You know, all businesses face challenges when growing. However, the data suggest that certain groups experiences some of those challenges to an even greater extent than others. For example, according to the U.S. Department of Commerce, there is an opportunity gap that exists between minority and non-minority owned businesses. Specifically, that those insights suggest that if minority-owned businesses grew at the same rate as non-minority businesses, right? If they grew just at the same rate, then that increase in growth would add over $5 trillion to the United States economy and create over 2 million new jobs. And remember, that's growing just at the same rate. What's a bit surprising is not only those numbers, but that the gap continues to increase. And just that fact that the gap is continuing to increase between the growth of minority and non-minority owned businesses is concerning. In fact, if the current resources that are available were effective and working to their fullest extent, we would hope that that gap would actually be decreasing. So at Texas State, we are focused on this issue. While there are resources available from many different platforms and programs that are specific to minority-owned businesses, we are focused at Texas State on developing research-based, proven tools that are designed specifically to address the challenges, the unique challenges that minority-owned businesses face when they're growing. You know, groundbreaking research often happens at universities, but sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect between what's happening within the boundaries of a university and practitioners, business leaders. At Texas State, and specifically with the SCALEUP program, we are focused on research with relevance, working to not only conduct rigorous research, but also sharing those insights with you all, with business leaders, in a way that's easy to use, practical, and effective. So to answer this first question that's posed here, you know, what's unique about the SCALEUP program? It is just those things. We are focused on research with relevance. We are focused on developing tools that are proven to work. A lot of times we hear stories that someone did this and it worked, and someone did that and it didn't. But it's important that there is a solid scientific basis for the tools that we share with business leaders. And of course, we are dedicated to working closely with owners of small and medium-sized businesses across the state to help develop these tools. So those are just a few things that make the SCALEUP program unique. The other question asks, where can I find more information about the SCALEUP program and related resources? Well, hey, thank you for adding that, because that's a great question. I'm happy to share with you our website for SCALEUP. That is scaleup.txstate.edu. And if you go there now, you can sign up on our mailing list, and we will keep you updated on the tools and the opportunities as they become available. Currently, the SCALEUP program is in an early phase. We're in phase 1, focused on doing that important research that I mentioned. to make sure that that research is effective, we need involvement from business leaders just like you, minority business leaders, non-minority business leaders, small, medium enterprises across the state. So visit scaleup.txstate.edu and you can sign up to help contribute to research, doing brief surveys, interviews, things of that sort. There are opportunities for financial sponsorship of the SCALEUP program. And of course, you can sign up to stay informed on the latest insights that come from the SCALEUP program at Texas State.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Daspit and Mr. Roy, for your information about the SCALEUP program and the Center for Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We're grateful to have all three of our Texas State University representatives. So anyways, here's a moment that many of our audience members have been waiting for. The live Q&A is now open. We want you to go ahead and start submitting your questions for our panelists thus far, as well as the two that we're about to introduce as well. But enter those questions into that live feed, the feed that's up in the top right. It'll look like two little comment bubbles with a question mark. So go ahead and start submitting your questions now. Also, like other questions that have been submitted by your fellow attendees, that's how we will prioritize which questions are asked and in the order that they are asked and answered. So we'll go to Mr. Jody Hall from ATB. Good afternoon, Mr. Hall. How are you doing today?
Very good, Jarvis. I appreciate you and the governor's office providing this format and this forum today. I'm incredibly excited to share what is happening at HEB, but I think the next speakers you're going to hear from George and Rubie will excite everyone when you hear their story, because George and Rubie have a powerful story. But I'm going to go back to the story of HEB. For those of you who may not know, we were started and founded in 1905 by an entrepreneurial woman by the name of Florence Butt. Florence Butt opened her very first store in Kerrville, Texas. But as you talk about the theme, from that humble beginning, the company has scaled up, and now we serve millions of Texans as well as Mexicans in our stores here in the Lone Star State and in 7 states south of the border in Mexico. But from the very beginning, Florence Butt was buying in supporting her neighbors by buying local produce, local eggs, local beef, and fruits and vegetables when in season. What we're doing now, 116 years later, is following in her footsteps. And we have been buying local products for over the years, but 9 years ago, we initiated a program and a campaign called HEB's Quest for Texas Best. Said otherwise, this contest could be like Shark Tank or America Has Talent or The Voice, if you think of any of those TV programs. But what we wanted to do was to create a unique competition that would engage our best resources, Texans, in generating distinctive, innovative ideas that will ultimately give customers in HEB more variety and a great taste of the state's best. And I will say, George and Rubie brought it home. It was in 2014, George and Rubie walked in front of our judges with their product, and you're going to hear more about it. But it took them a little while to get scaled up. But once they scaled up and they got a product on their store shelves, probably the most important recognition George and Rubie could get were those purchases by customers. So after they'd been on our store shelves, George and Rubie were presented with a belt buckle I'm holding up, and it's called the $1 Million Club, and it's HEB's Quest for Texas Best. And if anything, I'd say this is the People's Choice Award, because when customers have tried the great products that George and Rubie have created and now have available at HEB, it was the customers' purchases that really gave them this recognition. So we are incredibly excited to announce that we're in our 9th year of this competition. The Quest for Texas Best is underway, and a little further in the slide, Jarvis will put up the entry where you go to www.heb.com/quest to enter. But one of the questions I often get during this contest is, where do I send samples? And what we're going to do is we're going to say, hold and do not send any samples until you hear from HEB. Over the last 8 years, we've had over 5,000 products submitted. And we do not have the capability of taking, receiving, and sampling all those products at the same time. But what we want to do is we want to review the submissions and understand what is the concept, what is the product, and if there's an interest or there's something unique and defining about the story, we'll reach out to whoever is submitting the product and let them know when and where to send the samples. Another question we often get is, hey, if I enter the contest, does that mean I have to supply all 400 plus of HEB stores? And the answer is no. We're going to work with you and we're going to scale up with you as a small supplier at the speed in which you can grow. We have some products that are started in one store, maybe others in 5 or 6 stores. Some had the capacity to handle 10 stores or 15 stores. So we will scale up with the supplier, with the small manufacturer, the medium-sized manufacturer, as they can grow. But one of the great things about the Quest for Texas Best is it truly is bringing that commitment back to Texas of great products. And whether it's a product by a veteran-owned business, a women-owned business, a minority-owned business, there's a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners in the state of Texas. And what we want to do is just afford the opportunity to allow Texans to be delighted and to be satisfied in the products that are available through this contest. So with that, Jarvis, I'm going to turn it back to you, but I know you have George and Rubie, and they will have an amazing story that everyone will want to hear.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Hall, for being here and sharing that information about Texas Quest or Quest for Texas Best. As you mentioned, we have George and Rubie Huerta, who are the co-owners of George and Rubie's Favorites. And before I introduce them, I do want to say that Eric Snyder, our behind-the-scenes crew member, is posting a few links in the chat as well. He has posted the SCALEUP information. I believe he will also enter that information about the HEB Quest link as well. But those items will be available at the end of the slides. And I understand the slides, you cannot just click on a link and access that link through the slides. However, we will make these slides available to each and every one of our audience members after the event, and that information will be to come. So today, George and Rubie, before we actually say hi to George and Rubie, we're going to play about a 3-minute slide. This is an opportunity. I know the video may be a little bit choppy or laggy due to streaming through the live event. However, you should be able to at least hear their story. And I say that, and I'm not hearing their story, so I'm assuming you're not hearing it as well. So I apologize for that. Jed, are you attempting it again?
Yes, give me just 1 second.
Live events.
Barbecue pit opening. If I heat this cookie.
Kids running around.
Okay, it appears we're having some technical difficulties. We'll provide that link. I hate that our audience isn't able to hear that story. I think HEB and George and Rubie did a great job of encompassing and showing basically the journey that they have had to get to where they're at today. But we have them in person. Not the recording. We have them here today. So welcome, George and Rubie. How are y'all doing this afternoon?
We are wonderful.
Doing great.
So much. Now, in spite of the technical difficulties, that just means we just have to speak ourselves, and that is not a problem.
So tell us a little bit about yourselves and your journey, your experience with Quest, and what kind of challenges have you had as well? Don't just tell us the rainbows and butterflies. Tell us the gritty as well.
Well, first of all, we want to thank the state of the governor's office and HEB for wanting us to speak on behalf of the contest. There are so many wonderful vendors that we know and are great friends with, and the fact that they chose us is truly humbling. So thank y'all for that. But a little background about George and I is, well, just like Jody had mentioned, in 2012, we entered 2014, I'm sorry. We entered the very first inaugural year of the contest itself. And we entered the contest literally with a hot styrofoam and plastic spoons because our product is a Texas style gumbo.
Yes.
And so
Out of our kitchen.
right out of our kitchen, we walked in and we were mortified because there were so many wonderful finalists that we were accompanying that year that were package ready. And if that doesn't speak to the heart of HEB and how they are willing to work with anybody,
Help us out.
and you know, and us in particular in that time, and waited for us to take all the necessary steps to get to the shelf. I don't know what, you know, we are just so eternally, you know, thankful to that. So we started the product literally over leftovers in our kitchen. I had made some rice and chicken over the weekend, and you know, pot of beans is just standard in our home. So it was leftover Monday, and we were starting to warm up some leftovers when George literally took his chicken and pulled it off the bone, mixed it with his rice and beans. And I looked at him and said, "What are you doing? Making a Mexican style gumbo or something?"
It was like, bing. I was like, why not? I said, we're the greatest state in the union. Why can't we have our own gumbo?
So we, with a lot of love, you know, we love to host and have people over in our home. It's just one of our greatest joys. We invited some friends over, had them try and we're open to suggestions. And we finally came up with what we call the wonderful product that is now being sold in HEBs, with which we started first catering on the side as a side hustle. And who would have thought but God that from an idea and a little side hustle that we would enter this contest and go through the motions. And granted, we did not win the contest.
No,
I stress that we were finalists, but we were not one of the four winners that year. But we still got a call back. And if it's all right for me to say so, I was at church and they were praying over small business, and right in that moment, HEB called. And if I don't know what you know, how else to give God the glory but that, from that point, it took a year and a half to get from where we were to the stores. And there's a wonderful process behind that, but you do have to do the legwork. And there are definitely battles that you have to face. You know, first of all,
you have to find the products that go in your food. You have to find these things, and you have to make these contacts. You know, they're not going to do it for you. You got to go get it yourself.
You know, you do what you do everything that you can do, and then they'll step in and do what only they can do. And so one of the questions that was asked is, how do you maximize the exposure of your brand or products? First of all, join the contest.
Yep.
Join the contest.
For sure.
If there's one great way to maximize your exposure is to join the contest. And if you already have a product that is out there, we are living in such a wonderful time of technology and social media platforms. Get on every single one. It's literally free advertising. Yes. You have your Facebook, your Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. And if there is one brand, if there is like branding 101 that I have learned, is make sure that your profile picture is the same for each and every one of those platforms, so that when one person, you're definitely recognized from one and the other. Make yourself uniform in that way. It's a wonderful free resource to definitely capitalize on. Another question that we were asked is, does proper packaging matter? Well, as consumers ourselves, absolutely it does. And in a day and age where our attention span is like this, you walk by something and it catches your eye. And that's about how long it takes, whether or not someone is going to give your product a shot or not. Statistics have shown that because our product is a frozen product, and so you have to literally go down the frozen aisle, your product has to stand out. And you know, if they open up the door and they actually put it in their hands, 8 out of 10 times it's going to go in the basket. So you have to make sure that you have proper packaging. And as far as the roadblocks that come along the way is just make sure that your product is exposed in the best way. The picture just on our box, a food designer, literally, I didn't know there was such a thing as a food designer, actually took our product, pulled it apart, put it back together, and that's the picture you see before you on the box. And that was an 8-hour process. I will never look at a Southern Living magazine the same, because I understand what it takes for those perfect pictures to be created. And it is our actual product, but you want to make sure that you also put part of yourself in that packaging. That's why our gumbo is called Texas Gumbo, because we're
Texans.
We're proud Texans. And when George and I are shopping somewhere, if there's a cowboy boot or a Texas emblem to be had, our faces will automatically turn, because we're just proud Texans. And I'm probably speaking to the masses with regards to that, with everybody that's here on the webinar today. Another thing that you have to prepare yourself is the finances that are going to you're going to have to be prepared for, because you have to invest in yourself. You got to have some skin in the game so that you can understand that that you are invested into this and maximize those dollars in the best way that you can. And that's when we have these wonderful programs like Scale Up that are going to help you do those things. And when that happens, the sources out there are invaluable. And, George and I, if you go to our own personal Facebooks and Instagrams, and if you want to message us, we'll be happy to share with you who we've used in the past for graphics and that nature, because you want to be sure that you definitely scale your products properly, because there is a difference, in fact, between growing and scaling. We started out personally in 192 HEBs, and now we're in over 300. And that happened over time, with sales and with proper exposure. And one of our favorite things to do, and this is just speaking of our own journey, is sampling. We go into the stores and meeting with the communities, and they get so excited to see that's the actual owners that are sampling the product, rather
to talk to you, shake their hand.
And no pun against Stofers and Michelinas, but they're not out there doing that. Yeah. But George and Rubie will be.
That's right.
So you do what you must for your products. So if there's anything else that you have a question about, we can't wait for the other segment of the program.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple things stuck in my mind. One, you're right. Texans are a proud people. And we like to let everyone who's non-Texans know exactly who we are. So with that, yes, you have to be the best ambassadors of your product. It's your product. No one's going to represent it or want it to be represented as well as you will yourself. I see we're getting into the live Q&A. We're going to hop into the live Q&A, the questions that you guys, or our audience, are submitting. And I do want to encourage you to submit as many as you can in this next 20 minutes. We're going to do almost a rapid fire, going through as many questions that y'all are submitting and liking as we can. I see that already. We've had an anonymous person submit a bunch of links, and thank you for that, anonymous person. They've entered some information about the HUB program, the Historically Underutilized Business Program, as well as how you can become a vendor to the state of Texas. That can be a great way that you grow your business, is by selling providing your product or service to a state agency. So I'll get into the first question of the day. This question will be for Dan and or Josh. The question is, libraries provide equipment, space, and services that are available to entrepreneurs and small businesses. How else can libraries work with SCALEUP to assist the entrepreneurs and small businesses in their communities? So is there an opportunity for libraries to help, whether it's with the data collection or in some capacity, to help scale up in what y'all are doing? Josh, Dan?
Yeah, there absolutely is. And I saw that comment and am thankful for that recommendation. In fact, if you or someone you're close to is affiliated with a library, please reach out to us. And when we get into the next phase of our program, we will be looking for community partners just like that to help share our tools and resources in a convenient way with business owners. So you can reach us at scaleup.txstate.edu, or even email me directly. That's josh.daspit@txstate.edu.
Thank you, Josh. as you said that, I want to address another question that I believe Eric answered directly to a questioner. Someone asked whether this event is being recorded. I know Josh just gave that email address. Yes, this event is being recorded. And as I mentioned earlier, the slides, not only will the slides be available after this event, but also you can access the recording from two ways. One, you can go through our website, gov.texas.gov/business, and we'll have all of our recordings and slides available there, or on our YouTube channel, which if you go to youtube.com and search for Texas Economic Development, you'll see the governor's seal. And we have all of our past and eventually our future webinars are uploaded to that YouTube channel. So let's go to our next question. This is a timely one regarding what's starting, I believe, tomorrow, South by Southwest. The question is for HEB. So Jody, will HEB be at South by Southwest in Austin this weekend and next? If so, can you provide information on HEB's participation?
Well, Jarvis, I'm going to take a stab at this. Based upon history, I would say, yes, HEB will be there. There will certainly be HEB partners at South by Southwest, but historically, we've had a role there. Specifically, I do not know the context in which we would. So I'm going to have to bow out of that question because I don't know the exact capacity in which we will be present.
Fair enough. So I see this comes from Dennis Menendez. Dennis, if you could clarify, and what kind of assistance would you be looking to find HEB in? And maybe another question, or you can contact us later after the event and we can gather more information for you. Again, we'll have our small business email address. You can email us directly with further follow-up questions. All right. Okay, I had to read through this question. This question was sent, and I think there may be multiple people on our panel who could address this, but I'm going to start with Joe. This question is, I have moved to Cedar Park, Texas a couple of years ago. I'm starting up my own business importing olive oil from Turkey. I'm a woman-owned business and do not have a good networking yet to develop the business. I'm mostly making cold calls, which is moving very slowly. How do I build up relations sooner than later? Networking, how can I utilize networking to grow my business? Joe, do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, you know, this is one of the, networking is the most important thing that businesses could do, should do, but usually don't. And even if they do, it's not intentional. And there's been a lot written about intentional networking and the value of intentional networking in terms of building the right relationships to expand your business. We spend a lot of time with our clients and helping them identify what type of networks they actually should be engaged in, depending on what their strategy is to how they want to grow in the market, which market they want to grow in, and so what we have is a couple of programs that's called Get Shelf Ready and then Shelf Mastery, and those two programs we have a senior business advisor that works for us, Peg Richmond, and she is focused on CPG primarily. And she also focuses on the meetups and the different groups that she pulls together to try to help them learn how to network, and not just network with a potential customer, but network with the industry itself, so that you can learn the lessons from others and not repeat the same mistakes, and collaborate together whenever you're starting to expand your market. A lot of times when we talk about collaboration, one of the aspects of collaboration is, can you go into a market with someone else? You're not competing because they have one product, you have another, but you're complementing. But it's a way of leveraging your resources and your network and your opportunity. So there's a lot of things that we can do there. And what I would recommend is that, depending on where you are in the state, there are 44 field centers like Texas State University throughout the state of Texas. Those SBDCs can work with you, but if you're within our network, the Southwest Texas Border Network in particular in the Austin, San Marcos area, we can work with you. Peg would be happy to work with you on teaching you how to build a network. So.
Yeah, another thing, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to do a plug. Last March, roughly almost a year ago, almost a year to the date. It was March 17th, 2021. Our Office of the Governor, we developed a tool called the Online Small Business Resource Portal. And on that portal, you answer a few questions. We have a slide about it that will come up here shortly. And it will give you some resources dependent on your responses to the questions. And one of those selections that you can ask about and to find resources about is networking. And examples of some of the resources that will result are chambers of commerce and other business associations. So as Joe mentioned, that can be a great way of not even just finding potential customers or clients, but also being around other like-minded people in your industry to gain some tips and just learn about some of their steps and challenges that they may have had as they went through their journey as well. So I highly encourage using our small business resource portal, because we're still adding new resources daily to that, but it can be a great source of finding maybe some business associations in your area. Another question, I'm actually going to start this one with George and Rubie, and feel free, again, with any question, any of our panelists, or even though I may direct it to a different panelists, feel free to provide any other additional comments. But for this question, I'm going to start with George and Rubie, and it may be something that, Joe, you may want to provide some insight on as well. But the question is, I am having problems with growth because we are unable to hire employees. The question moved on me. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, here it is. I'm having problems with growth because we are unable to hire sufficient employees. Any thoughts? I guess I just left out that any thoughts part. So George and Rubie, as y'all have grown, I'm sure you may have hired a person or two. That is a challenge for me in being able to have that expense of employees. How can a small business address that?
Well, to be frankly honest, as far as physical employees, me and George are it. What we've done is when we scaled our business is we hired a co-packer.
A co-packer to take care of all of that for us, because it got to the point, it got so big that there was no way that even if we were to hire 2 or 3 people, it would have been to the point we'd have been cooking 24 hours a day, so we had to go with somebody that had the equipment and all that.
I guess in short, don't limit your thoughts of what an employee is as far as someone being right here next to you. An employee could be someone like your co-packing facility. Also, we have a social media, the word has escaped me, but it is a company that handles our social media platforms for us. They post for us because that can be very time consuming in of itself. So kind of think outside of the box of what you think an employee might be to you.
Yes.
It could just be a service that you are hiring or contracting to help push your name out there.
This is absolutely why I went to you for this question. It's actually, we had an event a few years back and where someone mentioned a very similar item. It's where know what you're good at and then know when maybe you need to outsource. Even we think of outsourcing as being someone who may be doing our packaging or maybe doing, in this case, production. But outsourcing could be just a different task, whether it's someone handling your social media. So that could be something, just having a professional instead of just taking on someone in your business, having a professional, whether that's a company, a contractor, taking on that task for you and knowing what you do well and sticking to what you do well within the business. So thank you so much for that outside the box explanation. Did anyone else, such as Joe, did you have any other ideas as far as if I do want to take on literal employees within my business? How can I address that as a challenge?
Well, first off, I think well said. I mean, what they said is what we encourage a lot of our clients to do. It's easier to ramp up a business with outsourcing. Now, if you get to where you're sustainable at a certain size for a long period of time, you may want to think about how do I bring that back in-house? But it also has to do with how it impacts your cost and your bottom lines, or whether you want to do it or not. But certainly, quick way to, and when we talk about scale, we're talking about a rapid growth. We're not talking about just an organic growth or a planned growth, but it's a rapid growth. And a lot of times outsourcing is the best way to do that. Internally, we're running into issues with workforce across the board. No matter what business you're in, where everybody's having the same thing. How do we get employees? And what we're looking at is, one is changing the role of the employee, because when we look at hiring people, we have sort of a traditional role in mind. And sometimes we need to rethink about how we are actually running our business, operating our business, and what roles are we expecting out of our employees. And then, of course, cross-training is going to be very important, because you need to create some stability in that workforce that you have and be able to maintain that workforce. It's a real challenge right now. Texas Workforce Commission is going through some real issues. They're working on strategies of how to find employees, how to ramp up employees. But we're also dealing with a cultural shift. COVID changed a lot about what people expect from their jobs. It caused them to look at themselves and say, what is it that I want out of my career, and how do I expect to be able to achieve that? And so now we're looking at both more where money may have been one of the primary drivers. Now we're seeing culture be more of the primary driver. So we're seeing some changes that are going to be challenging for small businesses for some time to come. The best thing that we do is we talk about right sizing your workforce. And I don't mean it in terms of numbers, but I mean it in terms of what are your expectations out of your current workforce? What can you do with your current workforce? Do you need to have some professional development? Do you need, how do you begin to build from within? Because there's not a lot of opportunity at the moment externally. And so outsourcing tends to be where we're shifting near term until we can actually sort of right size our current workforce internally. So.
Fair enough. Thank you so much, Mr. Harper, as well as George and Rubie, for your explanation on workforce and scaling up in the sense of adding employees. I have a very quick question I'm going to throw to Mr. Roy, Dan. Dan, someone asked moments ago to, again, reiterate what does scale up stand for. So what is that acronym, scale up?
Dr. Daspit, one of the running jokes we have is that at universities, it seems to be a prerequisite that you have an acronym for a program. So, but in this case, it actually makes some sense. So I'll let Dr. Daspit repeat it for you.
Sure. SCALEUP stands for the Sustainable Cultivation and Advancement of Local Enterprises for Underserved Populations. So the UP focuses on underserved populations.
Understood. That's a long one. But
exactly.
We'll continue just for this webinar's purpose to use SCALEUP, if that's okay. SCALEUP. This next question is for Mr. Hall. It's a HEB specific question, and again, these questions keep moving on me. Give me 1 second. It's about financing, and okay. So, in considering financial resources, what are the best options for a scaling up business, and would a company like HEB help with the finance or help to finance a business in scaling up? Maybe through this program with the Quest for Texas Best, is there some kind of assistance that is provided through HEB to help that business meet the requirements, or maybe a purchase order that HEB has done?
Okay, Jarvis, thank you for that question. And I'll say, over the last 8 years, HEB has awarded over $500,000 in cash prizes to the top winners of the Quest for Texas Best. But we've also provided in-kind services for other suppliers in helping to promote those products. So that is one term, but probably the largest way that we've helped to finance is just the issue of the purchase order. We've not taken an active position. I use the analogy Shark Tank. We're not actually buying share or equity in companies, but we're buying into their concept and providing a format and a platform for these products to be brought into the marketplace. But what I'd offer up is there certainly are many different avenues out there for some capital, and I'm going to refer back to one of the questions that was earlier stated about networking. There's 3 organizations that I'm aware of, and there's many others here in the state of Texas, but these 3 in particular are ones that HEB have partnered with, and we've seen and benefited through some of the great work that they're doing. And one of them is called Naturally Austin. It's a network of CPG companies across the state of Texas. It just happens to be based in Austin. Here in San Antonio, there's the Entrepreneurship Center, and then there is Break Fast and Launch, or Launch San Antonio. Again, all 3 of these organizations are member supported member networks. They tend to be 501c3 nonprofits. But what we've seen and what we've experienced is they're helping small entrepreneurs look at, hey, how do you get financing? How do you get this type of support? Again, this is complementary and works along the lines of the great work that the Small Business Administration is already doing are at Texas State University. So again, that would be probably my response to that question about financing.
Perfect. Thank you so much, sir. All right, in these closing minutes, I'm going to address a couple of questions directly myself. One, I see that Dee has posted a question. What are the resources available for minority women-owned businesses? So I'm actually going to, in most cases, those 2 distinguishing factors would be individually. So a minority-owned business may have resources and programs. A woman-owned business may have resources and programs. At the state level, we have 1 certification, and certifications are going to be the likely, the certifications may be the likely path that a person in any of these protected classes take. And so at the state level, state of Texas level, we have the HUB program, which I believe someone anonymously put into the chat earlier today. A link to the historically underutilized business program, which is administered by the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts. So that is a certification program which provides a competitive advantage if you wish to do business with any state of Texas agency. So that is a great program, the HUB program, and I encourage you, if you are intending to do business with a state agency, to look into the historically underutilized business program. All right, we're at the 1:59 minute, and I know we got started maybe a couple minutes late. We've gone through a ton of information, and I know we could talk for another hour on this subject, but again, I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. Kind of disappointed we did not get to go through and see the George and Rubie video. Excuse me. However, I think they did a great job of explaining their path and providing that small business perspective to this event. As mentioned earlier, we have our Governor's Small Business Resource Portal. Again, realize you can't click on this link. However, we do have the link available and the slides available at the end of the event. However, you can go to our homepage, gov.texas.gov/business, click on small business, and you'll find this resource right there. Again, answer 5 questions and get customized results. Outside of the resource portal, our small business team is here Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for you, the small businesses across the state. These 4 gentlemen are here to assist you. I like to say between Brian, Eric, and Jared, they're titled Business Assistant Specialists. They specialize in assisting businesses. So if you read those titles backwards, that's exactly what they do. And that includes any kind of subject you can think of that a business may encounter. Additionally, you can reach us through those email addresses, the smallbusiness@gov.texas.gov, as well as businesspermits@gov.texas.gov. Lastly, we have some contact information from our panelists. There is a slide for where you can see all of our upcoming events, as well as you can get all of the resources from our events. So that is the link where the slides will be. Granted, you cannot click on it, but we will have those up and available within 48 hours from the end of this event. Right now, as it is 2:00 p.m., you will be receiving a survey in your email. We do encourage you to provide some feedback about today's event, as well as offer some suggestions about maybe some topics or information that you would like to see shared in future webinars and in-person events. More to come about that. You can find your local SBDC, such as Texas State University's SBDC, by going to this link, as well as you can reach the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship through their website listed here. Information for SCALEUP, as well as the HEB Quest for Texas Best is available, and we will be providing all of this information once again on our website. So to close us out, I believe Ms. Cruz is here to say just some closing remarks.
Just to say thank you to everybody. Thank you to our panelists, George and Rubie. Thank you for joining us, and congratulations on all of your success. And keep your eyes posted on our social media and on our website for the future webinars that we're gonna do. And thank you all for attending. Have a great day.